they felt that, they knew it. They knew it, as if to come. But even then, because someone talked about Jebla, I had a problem when I translated Sijrat al-Harub. Of course, it's got an English translation, okay, which is the corruptory, okay? But that in English means exactly nothing.
Yeah.
While in Maltese, it's everything to us. It's Sijrat al-Harub.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing. But there were other things, I wanted to make at least a comment about. And for instance, someone said, I think it was Carl, that at the convention, I think if I understood, he made the comment that not much is being done by the diaspora, with the diaspora writers about subject not related to Malta. Okay, now, just before Christmas, I was in an anthology here in Malta, as one of 3. And if you allow me 1 minute, because I think it's unfair that we had so many times from your people there, it was terrific stuff. But can you give me 1 minute to read a poem I wrote about Syria, which goes very well with what Carl said? It only takes 1 minute to read. Thank you. In Maltese, of course. All right. This was, by the way, historically, this was the last poem that was published in the Maltese Herald, which had to be abandoned after 50 years publication. Right? This was the very last poem which was in the last publication. Jiena ben is-Sirja. Jiena ben is-Sirja. Nistenna. Nistenna. Il-bombi nażlin fuq ommi, fuq futi, fuq dari, fuq l-għażis mis-Siri, jiġġieled għalina biex fl-aħħar jifdina, jiġġieled bid vojta kontradu armat li qatel l-eluf msejknin. Jien ben is-Sirja, nistenna, nistenna li tiftaħ l-iskola u neda fl-oħħini, nistenna taħt saqaf tal-blat u l-bombi għadhom neżlin. Niesi fi-żżuz maqtumin. Jiena ben is-Sirja, nistenna li l-laqta tal-ġnus biex tħaċċat il-maskra minn wiċċa u taħslu bil-għaġtu tal-bombi mill-laqta l-mwaħħal tad-diplomazija u l-ipokresija. Grazie.
Grazie. Any other comments? Dr. Kikuti?
Dr. Lansari. Thank you. Ħanajda fil-basic some people spoke about that sense of not belonging. Is that all right? I think the whole process of writing is about not belonging, because writing takes place in the privacy of your home, if not your bedroom. But I think when you do not belong, when you're on the edge, when you have a sense of being an exile, that's great, because it enables you to tell a very different story. And there's nothing worse than a writer who's basically telling the same damn story and boring everyone to death. The other thing is I wanted to make a comment on what Anna Maria said regarding the Maltese being held in high regard. It's not that I don't think that Maltese are being held in high regard, but I attend a poetry reading every Saturday afternoon. We have, it's performance poetry. We have poetry read in Italian, in Greek, in Russian, in Chinese. I don't understand most of them, almost all of them. So in Australia, there's a sense of inclusiveness when it comes to writing. And the poetry is especially the case. It started in this way in the 1970s by a school I describe as the Leeds School of Poetry. So it was really more about, it says more about Australians and Australian writers than about us.
Ivan?
Thanks to all of you. It's a fascinating illustration of different perspectives on poetry. I was
Professor Ivan Kalus from the Department of English. Just
feel free, by the way, to knock the phrase translocated writing. I think it's a terrible phrase, terribly clunky, and shouldn't travel. But but the thing that I was struck by was the very precise, deliberated sense of the positioning of voice, of authorial voice, in regards to Malta and Maltese writing, because it seems to vary from a committed sense of disaffiliation from Malta to to something that I think you all demonstrated in different ways, and that is a keenly felt sense of wistfulness in regards to Malta and what Malta might represent. And the thing that I think is extraordinary in all this is that post-colonialist criticism is full of hiatus about difference and alterity, but the singularity of the Maltese mark on literature, the potential Maltese mark on literature, is not really registered. And I think this is a challenge for Maltese critics as much as for Maltese writers to really theorize from this space of disaffiliation. It's one thing that perhaps is just a touch missing.
Yeah, of course.
I want to reposition something because I'm primarily known as a poet in Australia. The back of this book is a suite of poems. And the quote that I was thinking about, and quite possibly the advantage that I was thinking of in being so erased to a point, pertains to me when I'm writing poetry and may not be so much when I'm writing non-fiction. And I'm reminded of this because I found the quote, and it's by Czesław Miłosz, and he was translated by Vallet, and it's from Ars Poetica, and it goes like this. The purpose of poetry is to remind us how difficult it is to remain just one person, for our house is open. There are no keys in the doors, and invisible guests come in and out at will. And I think that's much more my experience when I write poetry than it is when I'm writing creative writing or non-fiction. I would tend to agree with those people, those writers, who were saying that they sort of really had to know who they were when they were writing non-fiction. But with poetry is a completely different animal. It's a completely different psychic experience to write poetry than it is to write fiction, and it's much more like possession. And so I'm a much better seance mistress when I'm actually empty, and then allow myself to be filled by those other voices.
I actually think that is a very essential, important element of all fiction, not just poetry. And we had a brief discussion, me and Bernard outside, about as opposed to documenting journalistically narratives of say conflict or a war. In fiction, I think the one really important function, if you like, I don't like the word, but for lack of a better word, is to actually transcend the ideologies or ethnic national demarcations and put us face to face with the human experience. So I am interested in what's going on in the mind of, say, a Nazi general, as much as I am interested in a Palestinian today trapped in Gaza, for example. I think literature gives us a space which is unique, and art in general, but literature is what we are here about, which at its best makes us delve into the world of possibilities, of putting us into other people's shoes, even monsters, because they are human. And that to me is the whole human experience, and that even those monsters, can break down crying, and they have their own moments of the depression and elation, and so I think it's not just I think beyond just poetry. I think fiction at its best, that's what it does best, and so I agree that the writer has to be, well, at least in my view, beyond the very specific definition of what he is, and actually experiment and go into. I'm fascinated by the mind of a priest, a serial killer, a rapist, a victim of an attempted suicide. That's because that's what literature brings to the table, as opposed to say a ton of facts about the conflict, which would leave us cold in any way. I like to say fiction is what I do when facts stop telling the truth. Because the truth is much bigger than facts. Facts are just part of it, and they can't make you grasp the truths out there about our human condition. And facts alone are not enough. But literature, at its best, I guess, help us grasp that kind of truth.
Adrian, may I be allowed a comment slash question? Well, it has to do with this question of a very specific subset of writers which seems to be emerging. We have two examples here with us. There's Giuseppe Stagno as well. In the run-up to us joining the European Union, I wrote something about the somewhat strange phenomena that I was anticipating happening, which has emerged, in fact, that there are probably, possibly, more people translating and working with the language professionally outside of the island than there are locally. That's the question I was posing, at that time, because obviously Malta is not Poland. There's infinitely more universities, academics, writers, and so on in Poland than there are in Brussels. So, and now, on top of that, we have, and obviously, I asked, what risks this involved? Obviously, these are long-term movements, in the sense of, it's not something that happens overnight. But clearly we have, sometimes we felt it in the booth, for example, when we are fingering the document, which has come from the translation departments, and we say, what is this? They're very clearly involved day to day in the creation of language. Now, whether that's acceptable or not is another matter. I'm not the one to judge here. But they definitely are creating language continually. Language that has to do with the practicalities of life. But as a kind of offshoot of this, we are now seeing the emergence also of a subset of creative writers, who, as Mark mentioned, also have time, apparently, have a more leisurely existence and a distance to be able to reflect upon the important things in life and actually put pen to paper. So, I don't know, perhaps the two representatives of this